What if the leadership advice that's been holding you back isn't wrong? It's just incomplete. The real playbook was buried in history all along. How embracing discomfort became the ultimate performance hack. Let's talk about something nobody wants to hear, but everyone needs to understand. Growth doesn't happen when you're comfortable. It never has. It never will. The most transformational leaders in history didn't just tolerate discomfort, they weaponized it. They turned pain into power. They converted pressure into performance. There's this ancient concept that perfectly captures what separated legendary leaders from forgotten ones: becoming antifragile. It's not about being tough enough to bounce back. That's just resilience. Antifragile means you actually get stronger with every hit. Every challenge doesn't just fail to break you, it upgrades you. It evolves you. It transforms you into something more capable than you were before. Think about military commanders who intentionally put their forces through brutal training conditions, not because they enjoyed watching people suffer, but because they understood a fundamental truth. Soldiers who never faced real hardship would crumble the moment real chaos hit. Controlled discomfort was the forge that created unbreakable character, ironclad discipline, and mental toughness that could withstand anything. This principle applies directly to your life right now. Every time you choose the easy conversation over the difficult one, the safe decision over the bold one, the comfortable path over the challenging one, you're actively making yourself weaker. You're becoming fragile, dependent on perfect conditions to function. And when those perfect conditions disappear, and they always do, you fall apart. But the leaders who understood the hidden code did something radically different. They introduced deliberate discomfort into their lives. Conversations that scared them, challenges that felt impossible, situations where public failure was a real possibility. Not because they were masochists, but because each uncomfortable moment was training. Each difficulty was education. Each failure was an operating system upgrade for their mind. The mindset shift is simple but revolutionary. Treat discomfort as your personal trainer, not your enemy. When something makes you anxious, when something pushes you out of your comfort zone, your first response should be curiosity, not retreat. Ask yourself, what can I learn here? How can this make me better? What upgraded version of myself will emerge from this experience? This isn't about seeking unnecessary suffering. It's about pursuing intentional growth. It's the difference between pain that destroys and pain that builds. Between discomfort that paralyzes and discomfort that strengthens. Between staying the same and evolving into something extraordinary. Here's what the hidden code reveals. Your comfort zone isn't protecting you. It's imprisoning you. Every day you spend inside it, you're choosing stagnation over growth, safety over greatness, the familiar over the exceptional. And the gap between who you are and who you could become keeps widening. So here's your challenge. Identify one thing you've been avoiding because it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's a difficult conversation, a scary project, a new skill that intimidates you, and do it. Lean into that discomfort. Let it reshape you. Let it forge you into something stronger. Because while everyone else is running from discomfort, you'll be using it to become unstoppable. But there's another pattern in the hidden code that flips everything you think you know about planning. What if you started from the future? The reverse calendar that changes everything. Here's a question that will completely rewire how you approach goals. What if you stopped asking, what should I do today? And instead asked, where do I want to be in 3 years? And what must happen today to make that inevitable? Most people build forward. They start at the beginning and hope they end up somewhere good. But the most effective leaders in history did the exact opposite. They mastered what we call reverse engineering success. They'd visualize their endgame with crystal clarity, then work backward to today. This single shift in perspective multiplies effectiveness exponentially. Consider how revolutionary companies launch products. Average companies build something first, then figure out how to sell it. Game-changing companies start with the transformation they want to create in people's lives, the experience they want to deliver, the problem they want to eliminate. Then they build backward from that vision, mapping every single step needed to materialize it. This mentality changes everything. When you start from your desired destination, you automatically eliminate about 80% of activities that seem important, but contribute nothing to your actual goal. You stop doing things just because everyone else does them. You stop following processes just because they've always existed. You become ruthlessly focused on what actually matters. Here's the powerful exercise that elite strategists use throughout history. Visualize your goal with absolute clarity, not vaguely, specifically, viscerally. What does success look like? How does it feel? What's different? Who have you become? Write it down. Draw it. Make it so real in your mind that it feels like it already happened. Now comes the magic. Reverse engineer it. If that's your destination, what was the step immediately before it that made it possible? And before that? And before that? Keep deconstructing until you reach today. Until you identify the first action, the first decision, the first movement that starts the entire chain reaction. Something fascinating happens when you do this. You discover that most of your daily tasks aren't connected to your real objective. You realize you're busy but not productive, active but not effective. The reverse calendar is the scalpel that cuts away all the fat and leaves only muscle, only the essential, only what actually moves the needle. Historical military commanders used this technique before decisive battles. They'd visualize victory, then map backward every tactical movement required, every troop positioning, every moment of attack and retreat. The result? Strategies that seemed like genius, but were simply the product of thinking in reverse. The traditional approach creates motion without progress. You're doing things, you're checking boxes, you're busy all day, but at the end of the year, you look back and realize you didn't actually move toward anything meaningful. The reverse calendar exposes this illusion instantly. It shows you the direct path and makes everything else irrelevant. Think about the difference this creates. While everyone else is trapped in reactive mode, responding to whatever shows up, you're operating from a strategic vision. While they're wondering if they're making progress, you know exactly where each action fits in the larger architecture. While they're busy, you're effective. So here's your mission. Take your biggest 6-month goal. Write it as if it already happened. Use past tense. Make it vivid. Then deconstruct backward to today's first action. And execute only that. Only what's on this reverse path. Everything else is noise. But wait, there's still one more element of the hidden code that ties this all together. Why the most dangerous leaders practice strategic invisibility. We live in an era that worships constant connectivity. Everyone needs to be available 24/7, responding to messages instantly, visible on every platform, always engaged. The idea of disappearing, of becoming strategically invisible, seems almost reckless. But here's what the hidden code reveals. Deliberate invisibility was a weapon. This isn't about antisocial behavior or avoiding responsibilities. This is about creating protected moments of absolute silence. Times when you shut the door on external noise and open the door to internal clarity. It's in this space of quietness that the most powerful decisions are born. Throughout military history, commanders would vanish before critical battles. Not from fear, not from doubt, but because they knew that surrounded by constant opinions, pressures, and external expectations, it was impossible to hear their own strategic intuition. Invisibility was the filter that separated noise from clarity. Your brain needs space. When you're constantly bombarded with notifications, messages, meetings, your nervous system goes into survival mode. You react, you respond, but you don't create, you don't innovate. You don't think deeply. Real creativity and strategic clarity demand silence. They demand that you power down the external world for hours at a time. This is what we call deep work. Not multitasking, not surface-level efficiency. Total immersion. When you dedicate uninterrupted blocks of time to processing complex problems, connecting seemingly unrelated ideas, seeing patterns nobody else sees. And this only happens in silence. The most innovative leaders in history had invisibility rituals. Some walked alone for hours. Others locked themselves away in libraries. Some simply stared at horizons in complete silence. The format doesn't matter. What matters is the principle. They protected their invisible time with the same ferocity they protected their most valuable assets. Because they knew that in invisibility, mental revolutions happen. In a hyper-connected world where everyone is always available, always responding, always present, strategic invisibility becomes a superpower. While everyone's distracted by constant noise, you're in silence, thinking 3 moves ahead, seeing what they can't see, connecting what they can't connect, making decisions from a place of deep clarity instead of reactive panic. The challenge is, nobody will give you permission for this. Nobody will congratulate you for turning off your phone for 4 hours. Society will push back against your invisibility, but the results will speak for themselves, because decisions made after deep periods of solitary reflection have a different quality, a different clarity, a different power. The question isn't whether strategic invisibility works. History proves it works. The question is whether you have the courage to practice it when everyone around you is praising constant availability, whether you can go invisible when the world demands your constant presence, whether you can choose deep clarity over shallow connection. Drop the word invisible in the comments and tell me, what would you accomplish if you had 4 hours of complete invisibility daily? Hit that like if this resonates and subscribe, because we're about to reveal how leaders connected all these patterns. Now, let me show you how these 3 elements combine into something almost unfair. If everything you thought about leadership was backwards, let's destroy the biggest lie in modern leadership advice. The myth that there's one perfect routine, one optimal schedule, one universal formula that works for everyone. This is the conventional trap that keeps most people permanently mediocre. Think about what you've been told. Wake up at a.m., cold showers, meditation, the champion's routine. It's become almost religious. But here's what nobody tells you. The most effective leaders in history didn't follow these rules. Many worked through nights. Some had completely chaotic schedules. Others slept late and produced more in 4 focused hours than most people produce in entire days. What separated them wasn't their wake-up time. It was their self-awareness. They studied themselves like scientific experiments. They mapped their energy patterns. They identified their peak mental clarity windows. They discovered what worked for them, not what worked for someone else. On social media, this is the hidden truth that conventional advice misses completely. High performance isn't about copying someone else's system. It's about designing your own. It's about understanding your unique rhythms, your specific strengths, your particular patterns. It's about becoming a master of yourself, not an imitator of others. Consider war strategies throughout history. When commanders followed conventional playbooks, they got conventional results, predictable outcomes, average victories. But when they studied their specific situation, their unique strengths, their particular advantages, and designed custom approaches, that's when legendary victories happen. That's when impossible became possible. The conventional wisdom trap works like this. You read about someone successful, you copy their routine, you feel like you're doing everything right, but results don't come. Why? Because their system was built for their life, their brain, their circumstances, not yours. You're trying to run someone else's operating system on your hardware. It doesn't work. Here's what the hidden code teaches. The deepest form of discipline isn't following external rules. It's creating internal awareness. It's knowing when you're sharpest, when you're most creative, when you need rest, when you need intensity. It's building a life architecture that amplifies your natural strengths instead of fighting against your natural rhythms. This requires brutal honesty. You have to admit what actually works for you, even if it doesn't look like what works for successful people you admire. You have to experiment, test, fail, adjust, iterate. You have to become both the scientist and the experiment. The leaders who changed the world weren't the ones who followed the conventional manual best. They were the ones who had the courage to write their own manual, to trust their self-knowledge over popular advice, to look weird to others while being perfectly optimized for themselves. So here's what changes when you embrace this. You stop feeling guilty for not fitting the productive person stereotype. You stop forcing yourself into systems that don't match your wiring. You start designing instead of copying. You start optimizing instead of conforming. You become uniquely effective instead of conventionally mediocre. And that brings us to the final piece. How your unconventional manual builds a future nobody else can access. So let's connect everything. Let's see how these pieces of the hidden code fit together to create something that seems almost like an unfair advantage. Because when you combine deliberate discomfort, reverse calendar thinking, strategic invisibility, and self-designed systems, something extraordinary happens. You stop competing in the same game everyone else is playing. You start playing a completely different game. Picture this. While everyone's stuck responding to endless messages, you're in strategic invisibility, thinking years ahead. While everyone's avoiding difficult challenges, you're weaponizing discomfort to become antifragile. While everyone's trapped in day-to-day tasks without clear direction, you're using reverse calendars to execute only what matters. While everyone's copying generic routines, you've designed a custom system optimized for your unique wiring. This combination creates what looks like supernatural clarity, like you can see things others can't, like you have vision others lack, like you possess discipline others can't maintain. But it's not supernatural, it's not genetic, it's not luck, it's methodology, it's the hidden code in action. The leaders throughout history who transformed their fields weren't necessarily the smartest, weren't the most talented, weren't the most privileged, but they practiced these hidden patterns with obsessive consistency, and that consistency, compounded over time, created results that seemed impossible to external observers. The truth is, these patterns aren't historical curiosities, they're not outdated relics. They're timeless principles that work today exactly as they worked 1,000 years ago. Human nature hasn't changed. The laws of high performance haven't changed. What changed is most people got so distracted by superficial noise, they forgot the fundamental truths. So here's the invitation. Experiment with one of these hidden code elements this week. Just one. Create a moment of genuine strategic invisibility, or lean intentionally into one discomfort you've been avoiding, or apply reverse calendar thinking to one important project, and watch what happens. Because the difference between average leaders and exceptional leaders isn't resources, isn't opportunities, isn't luck. It's daily practices that seem small but accumulate into massive transformations. The conventional manual takes you where everyone else is. The hidden code takes you where nobody else can reach. The question isn't if these patterns work. History already proved they work. The question is, do you have the courage to practice them even when everyone around you is doing the opposite? Even when they seem strange? Even when nobody understands? Drop hidden in the comments and tell me, which of these 3 elements will you test first? And if this video sparks something in you, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to discover there's another way. Because sometimes the biggest revelation isn't learning something new. It's discovering you've had access to the wrong manual this whole time. This content is for educational and inspirational purposes. The strategies presented are based on historical analysis and should be adapted to your individual context. Seek appropriate professional guidance for important decisions in your life and career.